Welcome to Love and Abuse, the show about helping you identify poisonous communication and toxic behavior. You deserve to be treated with respect and kindness. That's why it's important that you learn to pinpoint manipulative and controlling behavior so that you keep your power and your sanity. I'm your host, Paul Coliani. Hey, I hope you're doing well. This episode of Love and Abuse, I want to talk about change and how someone says they're changing and you're not sure if that's true. And this usually happens in emotionally abusive relationships when you're with someone that says, you're right, I'll never do that again. Or I promise I'll change. Or I promise I'm going to therapy tomorrow. We get these promises or these declarations that someone is going to do something, or someone appears to be changing, but we're not sure if it's going to last. So in the emotionally abusive relationship, the change is usually dictated like a roller coaster, like an emotional roller coaster. And that effect of up and down, like today they're nice, tomorrow they're controlling. Today they're nice, next week they're mad or angry or saying something that's making us feel bad about ourselves. This is what happens in the emotionally abusive relationship, is that we think someone's changing and then they are exactly who we want them to be for a few days, and then they're exactly the opposite and they're back to their old selves, and we don't know what to do about it. So when you're in this situation, it's hard to tell what changes are real and what aren't. And so that's kind of what I want to address today, is how can you tell if the change you're seeing is real? And I think that's important to know for yourself, because this is how crazy making happens, is that someone says they're changing or they appear to be changing or have changed, but you have this little bit of doubt inside of you because you know from experience that, well, I've seen this before. I would love for this to be true. I would love for this person to have changed and realize that they have been mean to me or hurtful to me in some way, but I'm not going to hold my breath. I want it to be true. And so we have all this energy going toward hope and want and faith, and the whole concept that if this is true, this is going to be the best relationship ever, finally. But if it isn't, I'm going to have a big letdown again. And so this is what victims of emotional abuse will go through, is that they will harness all this energy and focus it on their hope and their want and their dreams and desires that the other person will finally show up as the person they once knew. You know, those initial few weeks or months of the relationship, that's how I want them to show up, because I know it's in there. But, you know, often with these types of relationships, that was, the act. I'm not saying it's always the case. I'm saying often when you have a relationship that is so up and down, there was sometimes an act in the beginning. It wasn't all phony. It wasn't all an act. I'm sure there was a lot of genuine emotions and genuine thoughts and caring and things like that. But when that disappeared and these other qualities of them showed up, you're thinking, where did this person come from? Where was the person I met? And because you may have developed an attachment, a love for them, it's hard to say goodbye to the time and the emotional energy that you invested into the relationship. But coming back to change, let's just say that you're in a situation where you're with someone who says they've changed or says they're sorry for how they've shown up and they realized that their behavior is not good and they're changing, or they've taken steps toward changing. How do you know it's permanent, and how do you know it's true? Well, you don't necessarily always know. First of all, if someone's trying to placate you or make you think they've changed, they can be very good at acting. They can be very good at pretending to change just to get you to a place where you're comfortable again. And once you get into that comfortable space, the controlling person, the manipulator, is going to swoop in and take over again. Again, I'm talking about certain relationships. This may not be your relationship, but I'm talking about certain relationships that fall under the category of emotional abuse, where one partner wants to control the other partner, wants to make their partner feel bad about themselves, wants to keep them in a constant state of worry, insecurity, lack of confidence, lack of self-trust, basically to the point where their partner really can't think for themselves and on their own, and they become more reliant on the person who's putting them through this controlling and manipulation. It's a complicated thing. I talk about it on other episodes of Love and Abuse, but when you're in an emotionally abusive relationship, this is what can happen, is that one person will end up being in a constant state of anxiety or worry or feeling crazy through crazy making, and they lose a lot of sense of self-worth and self-value, pretty much the same thing, and not being able to trust themselves because they're told they're wrong. And the manipulator, the emotional abuser, has a good way of convincing them that they're wrong and that they can't even trust themselves. So another thing that the emotionally abusive person, the controlling person, or even the person that doesn't really intend to hurt or intend to harm, they just are doing bad behavior, unhealthy behavior for the relationship, because so many people can do this. So it's not just people who are intentionally hurting their partner, but so many people can pretend to change. And I think it's important to know the difference between true change and pretend change. And I'm going to define true change for you in my words, and I'm going to read them off my screen here. I typed them up because I wanted to be very careful how I worded this so that you know what real, genuine, true change was when you see it in someone that you're with, your partner, your family member. When you are with someone who says, I'm changing or I have changed, this is what I believe true change consists of. And again, I typed it up here, so I want to read it word for word. When you figured out that you're behaving in a way that is harmful to someone else, truly changing requires an empathetic perspective of how you are affecting the other person. It makes you humble and careful because there's a genuine realization that your behavior was unhealthy. It puts you into introspection and reflection mode. You become introspective because you actually want to learn, heal, and grow from who you've been. There can almost be a sense of self-disgust and shame that you would ever treat another human being like that. You become reflective by thinking about all the times that you were a certain way to someone, and you have a sense of pain and regret that you ever showed up that way. True change makes you more receptive to how you should behave differently. You stop claiming to know better, and you become more submissive and willing to learn and change other things about yourself. So there's my definition for true change. When someone truly changes, all of that, or at least most of that, should be true. I remember learning that I was being emotionally abusive when I was married. I remember learning that and realizing for the first time, it was near the end of our marriage, for the very first time I realized, oh my God, my behavior is making her unhappy. That hurts me. It hurt me to see her unhappy, and it hurt worse to know that I caused it. It was the first time I took full responsibility for what I was doing to her and actually had an empathetic connection of her emotions regarding how I was treating her. It was a moment of enlightenment I'll never forget, and it changed who I was forever. But I went through that process, everything I just read to you. It was an empathetic perspective. It made me humble, and it gave me a genuine realization that my behavior was unhealthy. I reflected on all the times I treated her badly, and I did feel disgusted in myself. I felt a sense of shame that I would ever do that. I would ever treat her that way. It gave me pain and regret that I ever showed up that way. And from that point forward, it made me more receptive to her words. It made me realize that her emotions were important. And I stopped claiming to know better. I started taking responsibility that I didn't know everything, and what I thought I knew better, I didn't. I just became more submissive and willing to learn and change other things about myself. So I kind of repeated what I just said, but I went through that whole process, and she saw it. She recognized it. And by that time in our relationship, she'd already fallen out of love with me, so it was too late for the marriage, but it was the perfect event that could have happened because it changed who I was. It changed how I showed up, and it made me change my behavior because I no longer wanted to control her. I just wanted to heal. I just realized that I was unhealthy for her. That was a true realization. That was a true change. When somebody you're with mistreats you, and they realize that their mistreatment is very unhealthy behavior, they're likely to take a step back and go, whoa, what am I doing? This is awful, and I'm so sorry. I don't ever want to do that to you. I feel so bad. I need to look inward. I need to figure this out. I need help. This is the kind of response that really starts to point to genuine and long-lasting change. Now, on the flip side, you can also recognize change for show. When someone's pretending to change. One, if it appears that they've stopped a behavior, like they're turning off a light switch, and it was after like a threat of accountability, like threatening to leave or threatening a loss to them of some sort, that to me isn't change. If they say, oh my God, I'll stop the behavior, that is them not really connecting with you emotionally. That is just them protecting themselves. What do I have to lose here? If I have something to lose, I'm going to change my behavior. So that's one. Number two is when they apologize, which they probably will, their apologies don't seem to include an empathetic connection to what you went through. They may say things like, I'm sorry for what I did, but nothing along the lines of, I realize that my behavior is awful. I realize this now, and I'm so sorry that I've been acting this way. I feel so bad. Now, even that can be faked. Even that might not be a genuine comment. But when you put all these things together, like the other things I mentioned, then there's more of a chance that the change you're seeing is real. And especially if you get the sense of them stepping back out of themselves. I don't know how to explain that any better. But when someone really realizes that their behavior was bad, and they know they need to change, not for you, but for themselves, it's like they're stepping out of themselves and they're looking at themselves from a different perspective. And they're saying, wow, look at you. Look at what you've done. They're talking to themselves. Look at what you've done. How could you have done this? What kind of person are you? They have that type of perspective going on. So that's what I look for when people have really, truly changed. It's almost like they're stepping out of themselves, looking at themselves going, whoa, I can't believe you've been this way. Wow, we need to work on this. And number three is they become angry again when you continue that threat of accountability, that threat of the same loss. For example, if you said, you know what, I'm going to leave, I'm going to stay with my mom or my dad or my sister or whatever, and they go, okay, I'm sorry, I'll never do that again, I promise. You're right, everything I was doing was awful and I'm so sorry. And then you settle down for a few days and everything seems copacetic, everything seems comfortable again, but you bring it up again. You bring up that same threat of accountability. The term threat is probably not the appropriate word, but showing them that their behavior is accountable. You bring it up again. And you test it. You test it like you're in a laboratory. And you find out if that same stimulus makes them act bad again. So if you said, I'm going to stay with someone for a week, and they say, you're right, you should, I'm so sorry, and I'm going to work on this. While you're gone, I'm going to work on this. It's a good sign. I'm not saying that it's 100% true. I mean, some people are very good actors, but if you take all this other stuff into account, and you introduce the same accountability, this same action that you're going to take to make them accountable for their behavior by saying, look, I've thought about it and I still want to go away for a week. You're going to get the response because you're going to be testing them, testing their behavior to find out if what they originally said was true. Because if what they originally said about them changing is true, they're going to fully support whatever you need to do for you because they love you, because they want to support you, because they realize they've been mistreating you, and all they want to do now is make sure that you feel better because you feeling better makes them happy. Another sign of true change. You feeling better makes them happy. So you reintroduce the original stimulus, the original comment, the original, quote, threat of accountability, and see if their old bad behavior returns. If it does, then they were just waiting to get what they wanted from you. So when you didn't become compliant or submissive or under their control again, and you decided to honor yourself and do what you needed to do for you, a step into self-empowerment, which in a healthy relationship should be fully supported by both partners, in my opinion, it made them feel threatened, like they were going to lose control. So just keep these things in mind. If you're wondering if they're changing, if they're going to change, if this change is going to last, replay this episode, take some notes, because there's some important information in here. And I don't want you to be on the roller coaster. You know, roller coasters at a park are supposed to be fun, but emotional roller coasters are the worst thing you could possibly experience. There's never any closure. There's never any comfort. There's never any semblance of balance. You just never get into a homeostasis that feels relaxed and balanced and comfortable. It's always up and down. It's just too much to handle. No human being can handle that. They can learn toleration. They can learn resilience. They can learn coping skills. They can learn survival skills. But you can tell when human beings can't handle something when we're in anxiety states half the time, and then walking on eggshells another portion of the time, and then maybe a percentage of comfort and relaxation for a few days here and there. But the up and down bipolarity of an emotionally abusive or manipulative relationship, it's too stressful. It's too stressful for your psyche. It's too stressful for your body. It's too stressful for your mind. And even though you may think that, hey, I'm getting through this relationship, I'm surviving it, it's taking its toll. If you're in this type of relationship, it does take its toll. So just like I say in the Mean Workbook, you need to start rebuilding your self-worth, rebuilding your confidence, rebuilding your self-trust, rebuilding your ability to make decisions. Just start rebuilding these things. It's all self-focused. It's all about you. Don't make your self-growth, self-improvement about the relationship. Make it about you. A healthy relationship supports each person improving themselves the way they want to improve themselves. That's how you can tell a healthy relationship, is that there is a support from each side, showing the other person that I care about your happiness. I want you to be happy. I feel good when you feel good. That's a great goal for any relationship. Share this with others that might benefit. Love and Abuse is the official podcast of the Mean Workbook, an assessment and healing guide for difficult relationships. If you want to pinpoint the exact behaviors causing the difficulties in your relationship, including identifying all the signs of possible emotional abuse or manipulation, head over to loveandabuse.com. This show exists to remind you that you are not alone and you are not going crazy. You deserve to be treated with kindness and respect. You deserve honesty and sincerity. You deserve to be treated as worthy and significant because you are. Thank you for joining me today. We'll talk again soon.